fight. Potter's got to...
Oh! By Fury, and down goes...
I am the greatest. Ripping punches by Clay and more goes down.
I'm the best heavyweight it's ever been.
Fury with the uppercut! What a punch! The right uppercut!
Muhammad Ali is known as the greatest fighter of all time, with his hands down, amazing footwork and that beautiful hand speed, as well as the mind games that he plays too. But how would he do against a modern day heavyweight like Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk and even Anthony Joshua? Because a lot has changed since Ali was a world champion back in the 70s. Like, the training methods have advanced so much. These days we've got sports science. They didn't even know what sports science was back then. And just the sheer size of these modern day heavyweights compared to what they were like back in the 60s and 70s, they're way bigger now. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on if Ali boxed each one of these fighters. But before I give you my predictions on how I think Ali would do against them guys, first let's talk about Ali's style. He had an unorthodox method of defense where he will be leaning back with his hands down, which is not only super difficult but also super dangerous, especially as a heavyweight. But he didn't just have great reflexes. He had creative movement, which would allow him to pull off things that very few fighters back then, or even right now, can do. Like, once he got out of the way of punches, he would then surprise his opponent with fast counter punches to dominate the fight. Ali also had very fast combination punches, which we don't see many heavyweights have these days. And also he had this great circling footwork pattern that I've never seen a heavyweight do since then. He would wait for his opponents to attack or even draw the lead from them, then use his lovely step back slip, and he'd drop his hands even lower, and doing this while moving back would have the fighter in front of him like overreaching or chasing after his head. When you do this, this is what lowers the power in your punches. And if they did land, because they were overextending, the power was gone, so they wouldn't do any damage. He also had an incredible way of judging the distance. And if you train boxing, you can do this too. I'm going to come back to how you can do that in a minute and give you my thoughts on how I think he would do against modern day heavyweights like Tyson Fury. But right now, I want to touch on Muhammad Ali's diet, which is a huge part to any athlete's success. Typically, his daily diet would include things like eggs, chicken, steak as the sources of protein. And he would have these with plenty of vegetables like green beans and potatoes, which, if you think about, this is a perfect diet for any athlete. As far as his snacks would go, Ali had plenty of fruit and he would stay hydrated, drinking water. Now, hydration is key to any fighter's lifestyle, but when you're training hard like Ali and sweating so much, water is often not enough for you to be performing at your peak. Which brings me nicely on to the sponsor of today's video, which is Element. I can't help but wonder if Muhammad Ali was drinking Element back in 1978, would the greatest of all time be even greater? Would he be recovering better and boosting his performance? You know what? I think so, because proper hydration leads to better quality sleep. It sharpens your focus. It improves your energy. So drinking Element, which only contains the best ingredients, no sugar, no BS, would really have benefited Muhammad Ali. This is something that I really wish I had when I was training for the Olympic Games, because you never know, my bronze medal might have been a different color. And now I'm not just drinking this after a training session, I'm actually drinking it every morning when I wake up. And I'm feeling a huge difference in my overall health and energy. And what they're doing for all my lovely subscribers is giving you a free sample pack with any order that you get. So go to drinklmnt.com/boxing and get yourself some. And if you don't like it, which I know you will, they will give you your money back, and you don't even have to send the bloody box back. So go to drinklmnt.com/boxing. The link is below and you're going to love it just like I do. Back to Ali. And what he did that we see a lot of great lightweight fighters do is have amazing judge of distance. He could very narrowly dodge out the way of punches. I mean, really close. But what this did, it kept him in range to land these counter punches. But for me, what he did so great that there's not many heavyweights in history of the sport can do was the way he would defend in conjunction with his head movement. And what he did with his hands down, as his opponents thought that they could land the punch, he would step back with a lean and a shift and move his head off to the left side, and then he would pivot out, change the angle, which when you're fighting a smaller opponent, yes, this would work. But if he's in there with a 6'9" Tyson Fury, what do you got to do with this? Well, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I just want you to know what happens when you're in there with an opponent and you are just seeing missing by this much and you're punching fresh air, which a lot of Ali's opponents were doing. Not only do they get frustrated because they're missing punches, but also you get tired faster when you're punching fresh air rather than a target. Then what happens? Your confidence starts to drop. And Ali was an absolute master at making his opponents do this in the ring. But he often would raise his right hand when their opponents were throwing them punches to avoid them landing the lead hooks, as he was moving away from punches, and he would use his hands to parry and to block. But one thing that I did love when I was studying Ali, what he used to do, he would be moving back for most of the rounds and his opponents would be getting comfortable, plodding forward, plodding forward, plodding forward, and all of a sudden he would step back and then he would push off his back foot and jump forward and throw a right hand, surprising the person in front of him. But that wasn't Ali's key counterpunch. What it was, he would be throwing a jab, moving, circling, throwing a jab, moving, circling. Then he would wait for his opponents to throw their jab back. He would slip, then throw that big, heavy, fast overhand right, which was very dangerous. And often he would hurt his opponents or put them down with that punch. And because his opponents were moving into that punch anyway, because he was circling, the power in that overhand right would be a lot more. But this worked perfectly against the heavyweights in the 1970s, who were around 6'1" to 6'3". But again, someone like Anthony Joshua, who was 6'6", Wladimir Klitschko, 6'6", Tyson Fury, 6'9", who had an 18-inch reach advantage over Muhammad Ali. Could Ali land that overhand right over Tyson Fury's jab? Oh, well, I'm going to discuss that and give you my predictions if he fought against them guys. And we'll just see how I think he would do against the world's top 4 heavyweights of our generation. But first, I just want to talk about the combination which he had so much success with. He would be circling away from his opponent's right hand, flicking out the jab, moving and jabbing. Then he would fire a jab. His opponents would think it's just a jab, then straight behind it, he would throw a fast, hard 1-2. Now, some people might say it was a jab cross, but it wasn't. It was more like a jab, then a 1-2. And this was keeping his opponents thinking that all he was going to throw was a jab, then ba-ba, that fast, hard 1-2. They weren't expecting it, and that's what would do the damage. And this is down to Muhammad Ali's crazy hand speed that he had for a heavyweight. But again, this is against 1970s heavyweights. But what about if he fought one of these 4 guys that have been dominating the heavyweight division for years now? And what's funny about these 4 guys is 3 of them, like Muhammad Ali, is Olympic gold medalists. And the one that's not is Tyson Fury. And if Tyson Fury did go to the Olympics, it would have been the same Olympic Games as me. But he didn't, because he lost to my Olympic teammate, David Price. Now, throughout Ali's career, he fought a couple of Olympic champions, like Joe Frazier and George Foreman. And he beat both of them. Well, he did lose to Frazier one time, but then he beat him 2 more times after that.
Muhammad Ali!
And I'm going to give you my thoughts on how I think Ali would have done against these 4 guys, starting with Wladimir Klitschko. Now, just looking at the tail of the tape here, so who would have won this fight? Well, Ali fought in the era with different training techniques and had way less scientific approaches to training, recovery, and nutrition, like we spoke about earlier on. And where Klitschko seemed to excel, he was the ultimate professional. He held the heavyweight crown for over 12 years in total. Now, in the ring, Klitschko's biggest strength was his long, powerful jab and his ring control. This was a big part of his success and his strategy. Being a very big heavyweight, could Ali been able to counter that jab and have the same success as we see Ali doing here with the same height opponents as he would with Klitschko, who was a lot bigger than him? Well, I don't think Ali's approach would have been the same with Klitschko. It couldn't have been the same, as he would have done with the shorter guys. But I believe Ali's counter with that fast overhand right, which we spoke about, in this case would have worked great against Wladimir Klitschko. And with Ali floating like a butterfly around that ring, then stinging like a bee with that overhand right, I think that could have prevented Klitschko from throwing his best asset, which is that jab, because he would have been too wary of throwing that jab. And with Ali's really fast head movement, and let's be honest, Klitschko didn't have the fastest jab in the world, although it was a fantastic jab, I really believe Ali would have overcome Klitschko and got that victory. But moving on to the next guy, who was also an Olympic gold medalist, Anthony Joshua. Now, just looking at the tail of the tape here, Joshua again has got the big size advantage over Ali. And just what a fascinating matchup this would have been. It offers a very interesting clash of boxing styles and different eras and different physical attributes of heavyweights. Now first, let's talk about the size of Joshua and the power of Joshua. He stands at 6'6", very muscular build, and he's got knockout power in either hand. And also, Anthony Joshua is a master at finishing people off as well.
Anthony Joshua can
Now, comparing all of this with Muhammad Ali's 6'3" frame, and not as muscular, but he is crazy fast and crazy agile as well, which kind of is why Ali had so much success in his career with that speed and being very agile. And Ali had great footwork, but I'm a huge fan of Anthony Joshua's footwork as well, especially for a big guy. He moves very smoothly around the ring, like Ali would do as well. But I feel like Ali's footwork, he will be able to get away and around the sides of Joshua to be able to come back with them fast counter punches and then move his feet and get out the way. Now, Joshua tends to use his powerful jab and combination punches to control fights and set up his right hand or his uppercut, which we've seen is a great punch as well. His approach against Ali would likely to focus on, trying to get Ali to a corner and then putting the work in and throwing them punches like we kind of seen George Foreman try to do. But I think Joshua was a lot faster and a lot more slicker than George Foreman. Now, we've not spoken much about another huge asset that Ali had, and this was his ability to intimidate his opponents and unsettling them before he got in the ring with his charisma and his trash talk. Now, this could have played a huge part in unsettling Anthony Joshua if they were to have ever had a fight. But that being said, I think Joshua's only really vulnerabilities that we've seen is against pressure fighters like an Andy Ruiz or Oleksandr Usyk, where, they're putting that pressure on, they're standing inside the pocket and they're throwing them punches, which is kind of the opposite of what Ali does, right? Now, one huge factor in this fake fantasy fight, if you like, I believe is Anthony Joshua's modern day training and the way he's conditioned. And he uses the best sports scientists in the world, which benefits him so much, as well as the ability to study fighters and come up with game plans. I just feel like Anthony Joshua is a master at that. He's a huge student of the sport. If Ali and Joshua did have the fight, when we see Ali dropping his hands here like this with these chin kind of in the air and wide open, if he was in there with someone like Anthony Joshua, he couldn't do that because Joshua's got them combination punches and he moves his feet forward as he's throwing punches, and this would just leave Ali wide open for these power punches that Joshua possesses. And with Ali, when he does lean his head back, I just feel like Joshua would start going to the body and landing them punches. So Ali would have to change his game plan to something else. Now, all that being said, I just couldn't pick Anthony Joshua to beat Muhammad Ali. I just couldn't, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. Now, let's move on to the next one. Undefeated Olympic champion Oleksandr Usyk, who holds 2 wins over Anthony Joshua. And when you look at the tail of the tape, they're both actually the same size, the same reach, around the same weight as well. Now, Usyk is a southpaw, and through Ali's pro career, he only ever fought 3 southpaws, but he won them all inside the distance. That was Carl Middleberger, Alvin Lewis, and Richard Dunn. But all these 3 guys were not the same level as Usyk. They had all been beaten multiple times when Ali fought them. And as you see Ali here, he didn't look that comfortable when he's fighting the southpaw Middleberger right here. He looked like he was struggling a little bit. Just seeing here, he gets caught when he's on the rope. And sometimes during the fight, Middleberger was out jabbing him, which I heard surprised everyone that was watching that fight. But then Ali does what he was great at, and he showed why people say he's the greatest of all time. He switched up his game plan mid-fight. He actually started moving to his right onto his opponent's left hand, which you should absolutely not do against the Southpaw, but he did it, and that brought Middleton onto his jab, which is a crazy game plan, but it worked. And Ali started landing them solid jabs and actually end up winning that fight inside the distance. But Middenberger is not Oleksandr Usyk. As Usyk, former cruiserweight champion, he would bring amazing agility and footwork to this heavyweight fight. His ability to move fluently, change angles quickly, would really challenge Ali, who was also known as having fast feet and great movement in different angles as well. Ali had an amazing ability to control the pace and rhythm of fights with his jab and his footwork and his mental tactics. But would all of these work against a technical, experienced world champion fighter like Oleksandr Usyk? I don't know. If you look at who Muhammad Ali lost to, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, Leon Speaks, Larry Holmes, Trevor Berbick, I would go out on a limb here and say Oleksandr beats them 5 guys. Now, you might be thinking,
Tony, you're crazy. How the hell could Oleksandr Usyk beat Joe Frazier? He would have knocked him out with that crazy left hook.
Now just maybe you're right. And guess what, mate? We will never know about everything I'm talking about in this video. We'll never know. But let's just play along with this right now, because, you know, it's pretty fun, right? Now, one thing that both Ali and Usyk are masters at is their experience in handling different styles and adapting to the rhythms of their opponents during a fight. I do believe that Usyk's southpaw stance, along with his trickiness and his boxing IQ, would have presented some very unique challenges that Muhammad Ali has never experienced before throughout his full career. As showed earlier, Ali used to love to circle and throw that jab. Now, that wouldn't work with Usyk. Usyk is a great counterpuncher, but also his combination punches. His work rate tends to increase during the fight as the fight progresses on, and he will be scoring points throughout the rounds. But like I mentioned, Ali's adaptability during these fights, would he just adjust to Usyk's style and potentially use the rope-a-dope style like we've seen him do against George Foreman? I don't know about that. But like AJ, Usyk benefits from the modern day sports science training methods, which gives him the edge in preparation and recovery against Muhammad Ali. We're talking about Ali's greatness against Usyk's modern day tactics, which everyone he's fought up to now cannot handle them. I really can't pick a winner between these two. Can you? Let me know in the comments below. Now moving on to the big guy, Tyson Fury. Just look at the size difference here. 6'9" against 6'3". 18 centimeter reach advantage for Tyson Fury. Now, before we talk about the fight, I think one thing we all can agree on right here is just how good the bloody build-up to this fight would be. Both of these guys are the best trash talkers that we've seen in heavyweight history. So imagine them two in a press conference. Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? Now, if they fought, I couldn't see that overhand right from Ali landing on Tyson Fury. I can't see that counterpunching landing, not unless Fury got tired in the later rounds and then he threw it and then it landed. Even though Tyson Fury is a bigger, heavier guy, he's still known for his agility, right? And how good he can move around the ring, being light on his feet. And if there's a modern day heavyweight that can float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, would I be wrong in saying it is Tyson Fury? That rhymed, right? Now, would Ali circling his left work against Fury, someone that size? I guess he would. I guess that's what he would have to do. He'd have to move out the way of the big guy. But circling to his left would bring him onto Fury's right hand. And with Ali's style of leaning back, he couldn't lean back against someone who's got an 18 centimeter reach advantage over him, right? With his chin down, because them punches would land. Although saying that, Ali's judge of distance was phenomenal. So maybe he could, but it would be very tricky. Now, both of these fighters have a very high boxing IQs and mental toughness, and they both are a master of psychology tricks. So I guess that would, even itself out if we put them against each other on the psychology tricks. Now let's just see if they did fight. the early rounds, I could see Tyson Fury winning. Now you might be thinking,
are you crazy? Putting Tyson Fury in there with Muhammad Ali, he couldn't even beat Francis Ngannou at his first pro fight.
now bear with me, that's from another video. But I'm talking about Tyson Fury at his best, Ali at his best. So I would put Fury winning the first few rounds and Ali starting to adapt to the middle rounds and coming on to the end rounds. I don't know, we've seen Fury's heart of a lion, you know, getting knocked down and coming back and fighting, giving it everything he's got, putting it all on the line. We've seen that with Muhammad Ali as well. Now what a lot of people see is, if you've got two great fighters, the bigger guy's got that advantage, so the bigger guy would win. Now my prediction on this, Tyson Fury in his prime, Muhammad Ali is in his prime. I really have got no idea, have you? But there's a heavyweight who I've not spoke about right now. For me, my favorite heavyweight of all time, that is Mike Tyson. And when he used to hit the heavy bag, he would look phenomenal. And he used to do some things on there that makes me think he would beat any heavyweight in the history of heavyweight boxing. And I break down his heavy bag work on this video right here. So if you click here, you can watch this video next. Click here.